Hello, this is Patient X Files, where the rare becomes real. Trapped inside himself. I need to tell you something that will change how you see consciousness forever. What I'm about to share isn't just a medical case. It's about a man who lived through 12 years of hell that most people can't even imagine. His name was Martin, and for over a decade everyone thought he was gone. But he wasn't gone. He was screaming. Picture this. You wake up in a hospital bed, the lights are too bright. There are voices around you, but they sound distant, muffled. You try to move your arm to shield your eyes, but nothing happens. You try to speak, to ask what's happening, but no sound comes out. Your mouth won't open, your tongue won't move. You try to blink, but even your eyelids feel frozen. The doctors are talking about you like you're not there. Because to them, you're not. Your brain is working perfectly. You can hear every word, you can think, you can feel. But your body has become your prison. This was Martin's reality on a Tuesday morning in 2009. A 34-year-old architect who had everything going for him. A wife he adored. 2 young children who called him their superhero. A career building homes for families just like his own. Then, in one terrible moment, a blood clot traveled to his brainstem and changed everything. The medical term is locked-in syndrome. But that clinical phrase doesn't capture the horror of what it really means. Imagine being buried alive, but instead of dirt, you're buried inside your own body. Your mind is crystal clear, but your body has become unresponsive. You can see, you can hear, you can think, but you can't move, can't speak, can't even cry. Martin's wife, Sarah, sat beside his bed day after day, talking to what everyone believed was an empty shell. The doctors had explained it gently but firmly. The man she married was gone. What remained was just biological functions. Breathing, heartbeat, nothing more. But Martin heard every word. He heard when Sarah whispered that she loved him. He heard when she broke down crying, thinking he couldn't hear her pain. He heard when the doctors suggested it might be time to consider removing life support. For the first year, Martin screamed inside his head, not physically because he couldn't, but mentally. Every day was an endless scream of frustration and terror. He tried to will his fingers to move. He tried to force his mouth to form words. He tried to make tears fall, hoping someone would notice that he was still there. Nothing worked. The isolation was crushing. Imagine being completely alone with your thoughts for months. No conversation, no way to express what you're feeling. No way to tell your wife that you're still here, that you still love her, that you're fighting to come back to her. Sarah would read to him from newspapers. She'd tell him about their children, how little Emma had lost her first tooth, how Tommy was learning to ride his bike. She'd play his favorite music, hoping somewhere deep inside he could still hear it. He heard everything. He remembered everything, but he couldn't respond to any of it. The hardest moments came when Sarah would break down. She'd hold his hand and whisper apologies. She'd say she was sorry for being angry at him for leaving her. She'd beg him to give her a sign if he was still there. Martin fought with everything he had to squeeze her hand, to move his eyes, to do anything to show her he was listening. His body betrayed him every time. Months turned into years. Sarah's visits became less frequent. Martin understood. She had to work, had to take care of their children, had to somehow rebuild a life without him. But each day she didn't come felt like losing her all over again. The nursing staff changed. Some were kind, talking to him while they bathed him or changed his position. Others treated him like furniture, discussing their personal lives as if he weren't there. Martin became an unwilling audience to countless conversations about relationships, money problems, and weekend plans. He wanted to scream that he had problems too, that he was still a person, that he mattered. 3 years in, something shifted. Martin's rage began to transform into something else: determination. He started to see his situation differently. If his body wouldn't cooperate, he would train his mind. He began to exercise his memory, recalling every detail of his life with Sarah and the children. He mentally designed buildings, creating elaborate architectural projects in his head. He created entire worlds inside his mind. He'd take mental walks through cities he'd visited, recalling every street, every building, every face he'd seen. He'd replay conversations with friends from 20 years ago, word for word. His mind became a library, and he was both the librarian and the only visitor. By the 4th year, Martin had developed an internal schedule. Morning meant listening to the sounds of the hospital waking up. Afternoon brought the shift change and new voices. Evening meant quieter hours when he could think without interruption. He learned to find comfort in routine, even when that routine was entirely mental. Sarah had started bringing the children less frequently. When she did, Martin could hear how much they'd changed. Emma's voice had gotten higher. Tommy's had started to crack. They were growing up without him, and he was missing everything. The tooth fairy visits, the first days of school, the bedtime stories, the scraped knees that needed daddy's kisses. The children would talk to him sometimes, but awkwardly, like they were talking to a stranger. Because in many ways, that's what he'd become. Their memories of him were fading, being replaced by this silent figure in a hospital bed. Martin wanted to tell them about the dollhouse he'd been mentally building for Emma, complete with tiny furniture and working lights. He wanted to tell Tommy about the treehouse he'd designed in his mind, with secret compartments and a rope ladder. 7 years in, Martin noticed something different. A new nurse had started working his floor. Her name was Janet, and she did something no one else had done. She looked at him, really looked at him, not just at his chart or his monitors, but at his face. One afternoon, Janet was adjusting his pillow when she paused. She studied his eyes for a long moment, then did something unexpected. She asked him a question and told him to blink once for yes, twice for no. Martin's heart raced. No one had ever considered that he might be able to blink voluntarily. He focused every ounce of energy he had and managed one clear, deliberate blink. Janet's eyes widened. She asked another question. Martin blinked twice for no. She dropped her clipboard and ran to get the doctor. The next few hours were chaos. Doctors, specialists, Sarah rushing in from work. They asked question after question. Are you in pain? One blink. Can you hear us? One blink. Do you know who this is? As Sarah leaned over him. One blink, with more effort than anything he'd ever done. Sarah collapsed into tears. Not tears of grief this time, but tears of relief and joy and overwhelming emotion. Her husband was still there. He'd been there all along. The revelation changed everything and nothing. Martin was still trapped in his body, but now everyone knew he was there. Sarah started visiting every day again, talking to him differently now that she knew he could hear and understand. She brought photos, holding them up so he could see Emma's school play costume and Tommy's soccer trophy. Communication was slow and limited, but it was communication. Sarah would recite the alphabet, and Martin would blink when she reached the letter he wanted. Spelling out single words took forever, but each word was a victory. The first word he spelled out was love. The second was stay. Sarah quit her job to spend more time with him. She brought a laptop and showed him photos of everything he'd missed. Birthday parties, family vacations, holidays. Each image was precious and heartbreaking. He'd been absent for all of it. Even though he'd been right there, the children adapted to this new version of their father. Emma would tell him about her friends and her dreams of becoming a veterinarian. Tommy would share his struggles with math and his love of baseball. They'd learn to read his blinks to understand his responses. It wasn't the relationship any of them had imagined, but it was their relationship now. Martin's world expanded in small but significant ways. Sarah brought him a specially designed computer that tracked his eye movements. Slowly, painstakingly, he could type messages by looking at letters on a screen. His first full sentence was, "I never stopped fighting to come back to you." Physical therapy became part of his routine. Not with the hope of full recovery, but to maintain what function he had and maybe possibly regain some small movements. Progress was measured in millimeters and minutes. A slight movement of his pinky finger was celebrated like a marathon victory. 10 years in, Martin had developed a strange kind of peace with his situation. He couldn't change what had happened to him, but he could change how he responded to it. He started writing, using his eye-tracking computer to compose letters to his children. Stories about his life before the stroke, advice for their futures. He wrote to Sarah about their early days together, their first date, their wedding day, the day each child was born. These weren't memories he was losing to brain injury. These were perfect, preserved moments that he could share with complete clarity. His disability had made his memories sharper, more precious. Sarah had aged in ways that went beyond years. The stress of caregiving, of single parenting, of loving someone she couldn't fully reach had marked her face and bent her shoulders. But Martin could see something else in her eyes now. Strength, determination. A love that had been tested by the impossible and had somehow survived. 11 years in, Tommy graduated high school. He wheeled Martin's bed to the window so he could watch the ceremony in the parking lot below. Martin blinked out tears as he watched his son walk across the makeshift stage. Later, Tommy came to his room in his cap and gown and said, "Dad, I know you're proud of me. I can see it in your eyes." Emma started college the same year, studying pre-veterinary medicine. She'd bring her textbooks to Martin's room and study while talking to him about her classes. She'd say, "Dad, you're the smartest person I know. Help me figure this out," and then work through her problems out loud. Somehow talking to him helped her think more clearly. The 12-year mark approached with a mixture of reflection and hope. Martin had spent more time in this bed than he'd spent in his adult life before the stroke. He'd missed first days of school, graduations, birthdays, Christmases, quiet Sunday mornings, and rushed Tuesday nights. But he'd also been present in ways that healthy people often aren't. He'd listened to every word his family spoke to him. He'd been completely, utterly present for every visit, every conversation, every shared moment. He couldn't hug his children, but he'd absorbed every word they'd said to him. He couldn't take Sarah dancing, but he'd been witness to her incredible strength and love. One afternoon in his 12th year, Sarah brought something special. A photo album she'd been working on, filled with pictures of their life together. She sat beside him and turned each page slowly, telling him stories he'd lived but couldn't remember living. Their first apartment, their honeymoon, the children as babies. As she reached the end of the album, there was a new section. Pictures from the last 12 years. Sarah and the children visiting him. Birthday celebrations in his hospital room. Christmas mornings with presents open beside his bed. Graduations, achievements, and milestones all shared with him in their own way. The last photo was from the previous week. Sarah, Emma, and Tommy all leaning close to his bed, smiling. Underneath, Sarah had written, "Our family. Different than we planned, but complete." Martin looked at that photo and realized something profound. He'd spent 12 years thinking about what he'd lost: his mobility, his independence, his ability to provide for his family, his future as he'd imagined it. But looking at that picture, he saw what remained: love that had survived the impossible, children who'd learned compassion and resilience, a wife who'd redefined strength. Sarah noticed him staring at the photo and asked, "What are you thinking?" Using his eye-tracking system, Martin slowly typed his response. "I'm thinking that I'm the luckiest man alive." She looked at him in surprise. "Lucky? Martin, you've been through hell." He typed again, more quickly now. "I've been loved every single day for 12 years. I've watched my children grow into incredible people. I've seen you become stronger than either of us knew possible. I've learned that consciousness isn't about what your body can do. It's about how deeply you can love and be loved." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. Martin continued typing. "I wouldn't choose this, but I wouldn't trade the love we've shared through it. I've been present for every moment, even when I couldn't participate. I've heard every word. I've felt every touch. I've been more aware of what matters than I ever was before." The room was quiet except for the familiar sounds of monitors and machinery. But for Martin, it was full of the sound of his family's breathing, their presence, their unending love. That evening, after Sarah and the children had gone home, Martin lay in the darkness thinking about consciousness. Before his stroke, he'd defined himself by what he could do: build things, provide for his family, move through the world with purpose and independence. Now he understood that consciousness wasn't about doing, it was about being, about experiencing, about loving and being loved. He thought about all the people who move through life without truly seeing it, without being present for their own experiences. He'd been forced into a kind of meditation, a 12-year lesson in awareness and presence. It was a terrible teacher, but it had taught him things he never could have learned any other way. Martin closed his eyes and felt grateful. Not for his condition, but for surviving it. Not for being trapped in his body, but for discovering that his spirit couldn't be trapped. Not for losing 12 years of his life, but for living 12 years so intensely, so completely present, so utterly aware of love. In the morning, Sarah would come. The children would visit. The routine would continue. And Martin would be there for all of it, not just physically present, but truly, completely there. Conscious in the deepest sense of the word. His body was his prison, but his mind, his love, his awareness were free. And in that freedom, he'd found something that many people spend their entire lives searching for. He'd found meaning. He'd found purpose. He'd found peace. The locked-in syndrome had locked his body, but it had unlocked something else. A deeper understanding of what it means to be human, what it means to love, what it means to be truly, fully alive. Martin smiled inside, the only place he could smile, and prepared for whatever tomorrow would bring. He was ready for it. He'd been ready for a long time. He was conscious, he was loved, and he was home. If you enjoyed this video, please support the channel. Like, share, and subscribe. Please write a comment what you think about this video.